Well, hello. My name is Michael Anderson, as many of you know, and it's so great to be able to do these videos. And I just want to say thank you to every single person who loves these videos, who lets me know, the great feedback that it's having in your life. And my goal is to always be a source of inspiration or to help other people to be able to achieve their dreams and to make big things happen. I do want you to know, any person that is watching this video for the very first time, that I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ wholeheartedly, and He has definitely changed my life in so many ways. Maybe one day I'll tell you about it. But I also know that many of you are not Christians. I also know that many of you probably believe in something else, or maybe you don't believe in anything at all. And I want you to know that you're accepted, and I still care about you. I want the best for you. And you may not like my faith, and that's totally okay with me. I'm not going to try to push anything on you. That's not the purpose of this video. The purpose is to give you a message of hope. So if you do have a problem with my faith, that's totally okay. You're allowed to. But I just want you to look at yourself and just say, hey, maybe He has a message of hope. How many of you know sometimes hope can come from an avenue that you never thought it could? So I just ask that you give me a chance and just listen to this message and hear what the message is saying. So today's topic is the topic is called a call to action. And in this topic, we're going to look at a Bible story um, that really helps to expound upon what I'm trying to get across. And after we look at that Bible story, we're going to look at how this relates to our life. Because sometimes we read things, we don't know how it relates to our life, but we're going to look at how it relates to our life. I'm going to show a little bit of footage in this video of some action steps that I took with my dad, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I'm going to show some footage, and we're going to talk about it. And then we're also going to talk about what you need in order to make the actions that you're taking successful. So I have two theme verses for this particular message. The first one comes from 2 Chronicles 15:7, which says, "Be strong, therefore let not your hands be weak and slack, and your work shall be rewarded." Now, I also took some words. I took weak and I took slack, since they're in the verse, and I defined them from the dictionary. And we're going to throw that up on the screen. And weak means not strong, liable to yield, break, or collapse under pressure. And then slack means not active, negligent, and careless. So I also have a second theme verse, and it says, "The hand of the diligent will rule, while slothful hands are put to forced labor." That's Proverbs 12:24. And when you look at the word diligent, what does that mean? It means action, active, taking action. And when we look at slothful, what that means, it basically means laziness. So I'm going to define these two words, lazy and action. Let's take a look at the first word. Action means functioning. And then lazy means not inclined to work or exert. So you take a look at that in your own life and look at what exactly does that mean in your life. Are there areas where you're active and areas where you're not? Are there areas where you know you should be doing something and you're not doing it? We're going to look at how this affects your life and how this affects others around you. How many of you heard the statement that what you do doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you, and it affects other people? So we're going to really take a look at what that means. So we're going to look at a Bible story, and I want you to just follow along with me. This Bible story might make you look and see God in a little bit of a different way, and I want you to welcome that, because God always has our best interests in mind. And if you don't believe in God, then that's fine. But this is something that you can look at and just say, hey, okay, maybe there's something to learn here. So we're going to take a look at Abraham, we're going to take a look at Moses, and we're going to take a look at the Israelites and them going from where they're at to the promised land, from Abraham all the way to the promised land. We're going to take a look at it briefly. And we're going to look at some of the mistakes they made and some of the action that they didn't take, and how that affected them. So how many of you know who Abraham is? A lot of you do. I'm sure that you've all heard of him. Well, Abraham was a very wealthy trader. He was married to a woman named Sarai, who eventually was renamed Sarah. And even Abraham, his original name is Abram, but his name got changed to Abraham, which means father of many nations. He lived in a land called Haran, and God eventually spoke to him because he wanted him to go from Haran to a land flowing with milk and honey, which we all know as the Promised Land. So we're going to take a look at some verses here to start this off. It's going to be Genesis 12, 1 through 4. So I don't know if you like to read a Bible or not. If not, then, you can just listen. So in Genesis 12, 1 through 4, let's take a look at it. It says, "The Lord said to Abraham, leave your native land, your relatives, and your father's home, and go to a land or country I am going to show you. I will give you many descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, but I will curse those who curse you, and through you I will bless all the nations." When Abram was 75 years old, he started out from Haran as the Lord had told him to do, and Lot went with him. So, I kind of want to go over some of these verses individually, and you're probably thinking, how does that apply to my life? We're going to look at that. So let's look at verse 1, which says, "The Lord said to Abraham, leave your native land, your relatives, and your father's home, and go to a country that I am going to show you." So my question to you is this: what is your native land? Has God called you out of your native land? And it may not be a literal thing, but he's calling you to something. What is your native land? Maybe it's eating bad food. Maybe it's the financial plan you have is a financial plan for destruction. Maybe it's, your fitness level isn't where it needs to be. Maybe it's in a bad place. I don't know what that native land is for you right now. It could be maybe alcohol, and your habits with it. All I know is he's calling you to a place, and you're the only person that knows what it is. So what is that native land? Because I'm sure that he's already spoken to you about it. Let's look at verse 2, which says, "I will give you many descendants, and they will become a great nation. I will bless you and make your name famous so that you will be a blessing." So, something that we can gather here is that you must leave the old place in order to get to the new place. You can never have both. So, we have to make a decision. Which one do we want? Do we want the promised land or do we want the native land? And what is your promised land? I gave some examples of what the native land is, but the promised land would obviously be a totally opposite place than the native land. The promised land would obviously be things like better health, better fitness, better financial habits, a better financial future. Maybe it's your dream job that you've been avoiding because you don't think that you'll ever be able to do it. I don't know. You're the only one who knows what that is. So there's a few points that we can pull out of just these two verses alone. Number one, God spoke to Abraham right where he is, right where he was there in Haran. Has God spoken to you right where you are? Chances are the answer to that is yes. So if he did it with Abraham, they say, that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He probably does a lot of things still that are the same. Obviously, he's always doing a new thing, but, if he can speak to Abraham right where he is, I'm sure that he will speak to you right where you are. I have another question for you. What was your response when he spoke to you? What did you choose to do? Did you ignore what the direction was? And hey, if you did, you can start right where you are right now to do what it is that he's calling you to do. Another thing that he did is that he gave Abraham a little bit of a vision of what the future looks like. He said, "I will give you many descendants, I will make you famous, and I will bless those who bless you, and I'll curse those who curse you, and through you all the nations will be blessed." Very general vision. So has God given you a general vision? I mean, obviously, if you're in the native land and he's calling you out of it to the promised land, he's showing you probably a little bit of what that looks like. You probably have a vision, if you're trying to lose weight, of what you would look like if you lost all that weight. That's just an example. So in verse 4, we see that Abraham obeyed. And this is where a lot of people miss it. Because immediately when you get a vision of what the future will look like, you see all the obstacles are standing in the way of getting there. And there were many obstacles standing in the way. Number one, he didn't have many descendants. Number two, he was old. He was 75 when God asked him to leave and told him he was going to have children, many descendants. And Sarah was in her 60s, which means that she can't get pregnant. So just like that situation, in many times in our life when we want to get to a place, we see all the obstacles. So my advice to you is, instead of putting your eyes on the obstacles, keep your eyes on the promise. Because if you put your eye on the obstacles, it makes you not want to take action. But if you keep your eye on the promise, you'll do whatever it takes to get there. So eventually, Abraham and Sarah had their child named Isaac, who he then meets a woman named Rebekah, and they have two twin children, Esau and Jacob. And then Jacob, eventually his name gets changed to Israel, which now you know the nation of Israel, that's where that comes from. Also, he had 12 sons, which make up the nation of Israel today. All those children, were all part of the nation of Israel. Some of them are lost, but that doesn't matter right now. But the Israelites come from Jacob, whose name was made Israel. So eventually they ended up settling in the land of Egypt. And after many years, about 400 years, the Pharaoh that came up saw the Israelites as a potential problem. They were multiplying like crazy, and they were becoming a bigger nation than Israel. So what did the Pharaoh do? He got scared, and he put them to forced labor. He wanted all the male children to be killed, and he oppressed them in such a strong way. He tried to make their work harder for them, and he made life torturous and just very under cruel conditions. So in this time, this is when Moses was born. How many of you know who Moses is? Obviously, he was the leader that God chose to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt and into the promised land. Moses was born of the Israelites, but his mother didn't want him dead, so she put him on a river, and the Pharaoh's wife, I believe it was, or someone from the Egyptians, actually caught him, and he grew up in the palace of the Pharaoh as basically his son. Eventually, Moses kills somebody and ends up flying away. Not flying, but like fleeing the country and going to a different land. He went to Midian. Eventually, because of all the oppression that Pharaoh had put the Israelites under, God speaks to Moses in a burning bush and says, I need you to lead my people out of Israel. I need you to go talk to the Pharaoh. At first, Moses didn't want to do it. He came up with a bunch of excuses. My voice is not a good voice, and he just didn't want to do it. But God burned with anger, and he saw that he's supposed to do this, so he did. And God said that Aaron would be your spokesperson. So they went and spoke to Pharaoh several times. He didn't want to let the people go. So God brought destruction on the land of of the land of Egypt, because Pharaoh wouldn't listen. So one thing is for sure, after knowing this, I don't ever want to get in the way of God's plans for anything because of the destruction that he caused because of it. So the first time he wouldn't let the people go, the Nile River turned to blood. And then they didn't have anything to drink. So Pharaoh said, can you talk to God? And Moses did. And God turned the water back into regular water. So then frogs came up, and they were everywhere because Pharaoh still refused to let the children of Israel go. So then he spoke to Moses, and Moses talked to God, and God brought all the frogs away. And then the third time, there were gnats that covered the animals and the people and the ground. And then after that, because he wouldn't let them go, it was flies covering the people and the ground. And they were all over the houses, and the houses were full of them. And all of these destructions that are coming are not happening in the land that the Israelites are at. It's only happening in the rest of Egypt, which is really amazing. After that, a disease on the animals came, and they died. and then boils on the people after that and the animals. And then there was hail that destroyed almost everything. And then locusts came up after that and completely ate everything. And then darkness for 3 days in Egypt. And then the last thing, which was the last straw, is the death of the firstborn children. So eventually, the Pharaoh was like, okay, fine, go, get out of here. But then he changed his mind as they were leaving, and they were pinned against the Red Sea, and they're coming after them. And God opens the Red Sea, and then they cross over, and then God closes the Red Sea on the Egyptians and kills all of them. Could you imagine that? After seeing all of that, it's like, wow, this is amazing. God is for us, and He protected us. And then after that, they ended up in the desert for almost 40 years because they were complaining and they didn't believe God anymore. They didn't trust Him, and they didn't like what they were seeing. They didn't like being in the desert. So they were in the desert for almost 40 years because they weren't following directions. But anyway, we're not going to go there right now. But one thing that we can see here is that God, first of all, God gave Moses specific instructions about what was to happen when they entered the Promised Land. And if you look in Numbers 33, 51 through 53, it says the Lord gave Moses the following instructions for Israel. When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, you must drive out all the inhabitants of the land, destroy all their stone and metal idols and all their places of worship. Occupy the land and settle in it because I am giving it to you. Now, I know that a lot of you might think that that is very harsh. Why would a God who is a God of love do that? Well, the answer obviously is because He did it for their protection. I want you to think about if you're a parent or you're a business owner or if you're, an organization leader or a leader of a people. You probably think about their protection. And you wouldn't want the wrong people to be around your people because, number one, they could turn your people against you. They can start all kinds of problems with your people. They can lead them wrongly. All those kinds of things. So if you're a person who's a leader of a people in whatever capacity, you want to see the best for your people. And you want to have the best company, the best family, the best organization that you possibly can. You're not trying to waste your time. You're trying to go for a big goal. So how many of you know, though, that people have a tendency to get rebellious and lazy? So that's kind of what happened with the Israelites when they crossed into the Promised Land. When after Moses died, Joshua led them into the Promised Land. And there are several examples that I'll give you here. Joshua 13:13 says, "But the Israelites did not drive out the people of Geshur and Maachah." Joshua 17:13. "When the Israelites grew stronger, they subjected the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not drive them out completely." And then in Judges 1:27 through 34, you see a whole ton of people that they did not drive out of the land. And I also know that they allowed the Jebusites to live in the land of Jebus, which is now the capital of Israel, called Jerusalem. So, how many of you have seen people ignore your instructions? And also, have you ever ignored instructions that were given to you? What happens when people ignore instructions? There's consequences, right? So, let's take a look at what happened when, because of their lack of ability to follow that instruction. What happened in the future? Well, number one, they became friends with the people they did not drive out of the land. Number two, they became like them. They started practicing their customs and their religious practices, which were wicked, such as throwing your firstborn child into fire. I'm sure that none of you would ever want to do something like that. Number three, their ancestors many years later had to fight a ton of tremendously gruesome wars against all of those people. Number four is it influenced and corrupted their government because they changed their government at the time to be the way that the government of the people around them had set up. And then eventually they lost their land. So guys, I want you to take a look at the actions you're neglecting to take and the actions that you are taking that you know you need to change. Are they making life easier for the people around you? Or are they putting up obstacles in your way and other people's ways. I also want you to think about your children, your clients. Are you passing down habits to your children that are going to be detrimental later for their future? Are you passing down, bad business practices that can be detrimental to the business later on down the road, even when you're not alive, that may cause the business to be lost? I want you to think about that. Take a look at those places in your life that you're not taking action on that you know you need to. This is your call to action. Let's take a look at Proverbs 13:4 for a minute. I have 3 scriptures that I'm going to read off to you. No matter how much a lazy person may want something, he will never get it. But a hard worker will get everything he wants. Proverbs 10:4. Being lazy will make you poor, but hard work will make you rich. Proverbs 14:23. Work and you will earn a living. Sit around talking and you will become poor. So now we're going to just talk briefly about what you need to do in order to get into action. You need 6 things in place in order to succeed in your steps of action. Number 1 is you need to make a solid decision on what you're going to do. Without a decision, you can't take action. So you got to make a decision. Are you going to do this or not? You know you probably need to, so make that decision. Number 2, you need to set some goals. Proverbs 4:26 says, plan carefully whatever you do, and whatever you do will turn out right. So you need to have some goals, and you need to have a plan. Number 3 is you need to stay focused. That may look like getting rid of all the naysayers in your life and not having people around you that will, kind of block your goals and try to talk you out of doing what you're supposed to be doing. Number 4, you need persistence. That when the times get tough, that you keep going anyway. Number 5 is consistency. That means doing the right things over and over and over again and not getting lazy. And then number 6, you need support. Whatever that may look like. I know that some people, when they're trying to lose weight, they go to Weight Watchers. That's a great support system to have in place. Number 2 can be like people that are going to spur you on towards your goals and towards success. So remember to always have your decision, your goals, your focus, persistence, consistency, and support whenever venturing out on anything. I'm going to close with this story. My father had 3 strokes by the time I was about 21 years old, going on 22. And those 3 strokes left him unable to use a lot of his right side. It mainly took almost everything out of it. So I started to get used to how life is. That's just how it is. I have to take care of him. I found myself in a primary caregiver role. So I have to bathe him. I have to change his diaper. I have to put clothes on him for him. That kind of thing. Well, eventually God started to show me as I started following him how I'm not doing a good enough job. And to be honest with you, I really wasn't back in the day. I wasn't doing all I could do. It was really sad. I really wasn't. But eventually, I started to treat my dad like a king. And even lately, I've been doing exercises with him on that right side. I just felt inspired to do it, so I took action on it. And just within 2 weeks, I started to see how he began to have movement in his right leg, and have movement in his right fingers, and even have some resistance that I feel him put in his arm when I do the exercises with him, which is something that he never had before. He always had a little bit of movement, but he never had the movement to the degree that he has right now. And I'm going to put this footage up on the screen where you can see that it's his right leg, but you're looking at the left leg from your perception, the way that you're looking at this. So look at that left leg, and he's able to move it. He's never been able to do that before. And that's really amazing what he's doing right now. So I'm very proud of him. But once again, if I didn't take action on what I knew I felt inside that I needed to do, he wouldn't be able to move his leg. And the whole purpose of this video is to help you to see that if you just start taking action on what you know you need to do. I'm not telling you to take action on things that you can't do. There's things that you just can't do. But you can do something, And I know that there's things that you know you can do. So I really want you to really go after what you know you need to do. I read off all of the destructions that came to Egypt. And how many of you know when you're not giving your full potential, you tend to fall into depression and all kinds of things that you feel less than and you don't feel good enough. And I know that there's probably some who already feel that. We all know the statistics. When people retire, within the first 2 years, most of those people end up passing away. I'm not sure why that is, but we do know in some of those statistics they say that there's a lack of purpose that those people feel. They sit around too much. That's what the statistics say. That they're no longer using their mind too much anymore. So I want you to look at what areas of life that you're becoming this way and choose to take action. Because how many of you know when you have the feeling of purpose pulsing through your veins, you know you're doing what you're supposed to do. And let's look at the destructions of Egypt again. The Nile River turned to blood. The frogs came up out of the ground, out of the water, and they were found everywhere. Gnats then covered the whole place, and they were everywhere. Then it was flies covering people, the animals, and the ground. Diseases came on the animals, and they ended up dying. Boils were on the people and the animals. There was hail that destroyed everything. Locusts that completely ate up everything. Darkness for 3 days, and death of the firstborn. Now, I'm not saying that all these exact things are going to happen to you if you're not taking action on the things you know you need to take action on. But I am saying this, there will be something that happens. You know what I mean? You're not setting yourself up for the best when you ignore things. How many of you know that to be true? So, in some way, I want you to know that you can escape those consequences, whatever they're going to be. So I want you to start taking action. Know that you can be who you want to be, that you can do what you want to do. That's what I'm here for, is because I want to inspire you. I want you to know that you can take action on a lot of things. I've been taking action on a lot of things lately in a lot of ways. And I've been finding that these things are making me feel totally different and full of purpose. So I want to see you do the same, because when you feel alive is when purpose is going through you and you feel like you're doing the things that you know you need to do. Some of those things may be things that you have not taken action on in years. It's time to step up and do it. I want to see you succeed, and I believe in you 100%. Mark 9:23 says, all things are possible for those who believe. So I want to personalize it, just like I do in every video, and say that all things are possible for me because I believe. I want you to say it with me when I count to 3. So I'm going to count to 3, and we'll say it. 1, 2, 3. All things are possible for me because I believe. This has been your call to action. My name is Michael Anderson, and God willing, we will be talking again soon.